I don't feel like getting dressed, and my roommate is asleep. So I hope you all enjoy this voiceover that I am going to do while I do this puzzle. Yay! This feels good, actually. I think of this. So today I'm going to be talking about dissociation while growing up, having DID, but not knowing about it. Very fun subject. Because it wasn't me who pointed this out. There was someone else on YouTube. I'll try to find a video. It really helped us to watch, where I believe they pointed out that not a lot of systems on YouTube talk about what it's like to grow up without knowing your system, like what that looks like. So since that was like a groundbreaking video for us to watch, here I am. I want to share my experiences, basically. I feel pretty much like me. I'd say 80%. Not entirely like me. So I'll go ahead and introduce myself. It's Jamie. Just like in the last video, or at least a very strong passive influence from Jamie. So what I've got is a list of symptoms of things that I experienced. It's a long list. It's a very long list. I'm assuming that if you've clicked on this video, you have an idea of what dissociative identity disorder is. If you don't, look it up. This isn't the kind of video where that gets explained. So one of the characteristic things about DID is that some, or even all, people involved in the system may not know that they are in fact a system. So they might not know about the others in their system. They may think that they are the only person in that system. So this leads to a lot of interesting experiences growing up. A lot of, well, for us there is, our own experiences, and then for other people it will be different. Our experience is kind of more close to people with OSDD than it is people with OSDD who have systems than it is people with DID. We don't have blackouts very often anymore. We do have pretty significant like amnesia between switching in some ways. But we retain a general memory, and that means it's a little bit harder to tell, one, when you've switched, and two, it's hard to tell when you've had amnesia, because you don't forget everything, you just forget something. So you don't we don't wake up and we're outside and we don't know how we got there. That doesn't happen to us, at least not right now. The reason we have DID, like that's our diagnosis, and not OSCD, is because we have had blackouts in the past, like when we were kids. Or at least that's what I've been told by my system mates. And yeah. I mean that in and of itself. That there's stuff that I don't know that they know. And then it's like, I just have to trust that they know it. Yeah. Okay, so for us growing up, it was in a military family and a Mormon family, a Mormon military family. So trigger warnings for that. And obviously we're talking about a lot of dissociative symptoms. So, be careful of all of that and all of that, basically. Just forge forward with caution. So I want to do this right. Okay, so I'm going to try, because I don't want to talk about trauma here. I want to talk about the symptoms, but I don't want to talk about why they're there, and I don't want to talk about what caused my DID, our DID. So when I'm talking about my experiences, I mean mine as in Jamie. I have, an idea of what the others, a little bit of what they've experienced, because I watched them go through it, right? Because we were there together. I can't speak to their experiences. I can kind of mention it, I guess, or whatever, if I have permission. But that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm speaking as someone who is technically the host, the person who is out right now the most, pretty much all the time. Not complete, like I said. Right now I'm like 80% me. I have 80% connection to who I am as a person, and that'll maybe make sense a little bit later as I explain. But I am always out, and then other people come in at the same time as me, but I'm always here. Either watching or somewhere, but they can always find me. Like, I'm always in the area. I'm always in the car, as they say. I might not be in the driver's seat, but I'm in the passenger seat or on top of the car sometimes when I'm really dissociated. So I'm a little bit avoiding this starting because it's a lot. It's a lot. We're in a, at least to me, I feel like I'm in a much more stable, calm place than I've ever been. I'm honestly quite happy with where things are. I mean, because I know they're going to get better. But like when you're growing up, it's confusion. It's just pure confusion. Like your life is confusion, your identity is confusion. And by that I mean literally everything. I had no connection to my body. I had no connection to my emotions. And my experience of the world, I'm not really sure. Which says a lot already. So in terms of like my body, it just felt like, people talk about out-of-body experiences. For me, it was like I knew where my skin was, but that was it. I knew where the barriers were. I knew kind of like the boundaries of everything, but that was it. I don't know how to explain it even, because half the time I'm still not in my body. But it's like you look at it and you feel like you don't really understand that it's there. You're just you look at it and you're just like, okay, well, that's there. I don't really know why. It just is. And that's just really, confusing. And it was confusing. It was confusing and it felt unsettling. It was like, yeah, I'd say I spent my entire childhood, except maybe a few moments that aren't coming to mind right now, but the majority of my childhood was spent not being in my body. I'm just like this tiny little flame on the inside, and I'm just controlling it from there. I'm not controlling my actual body from my body. I didn't feel a lot of pain either. I could just bully through it. For me, I didn't really, unless it was extreme. No matter what it was, if it wasn't extreme, I wouldn't feel it. So like if I'm in the shower or whatever, water or washing my hands, I always make the water, hotter and hotter and hotter, because I just, I can feel it and I know it's hot, but I still don't feel like it's hot enough. I don't recognize it as hot. So that's kind of the body disconnect. The other thing is the disconnection from my feelings. It was like I had feelings. I knew where they were, but I didn't have access to them. I didn't know where they were, but I could feel them off in the distance. I kind of. That's what it felt like. And so I would know kind of if I was at a group, if I was in a group of people and they're talking and chatting and whatever, they would say something and I'm sitting there confused because I'm watching everyone else have these spontaneous reactions to things, and they seem to be really feeling their emotions. And I'd just be sitting in my seat confused, wondering why that's not me. Why I have to put on my emotions. I have to analyze how I should feel about something and then behave accordingly. I didn't have a connection to my emotions. I didn't react to things often until weeks later. And by then, everybody had forgotten what had gone on, so I just forgot about it. About whatever it was. And didn't bring it up, didn't worry about it, just dissociated it away, just goodbye. I remember being very jealous of other people and their connection to their emotions. And I know anybody who knew us would probably be shocked to hear me say that, because I was very animated. All of us were very animated. And, sometimes the others would come out. I recognize that now, that sometimes, I would just be acting different. And I thought it was me, but no, it was one of the others had come up to the front with me and started acting like themselves, started being themselves. And, very different from how we usually are, or how I usually am, which is, very reserved, very blank kind of thing. But I knew how to mask. I knew how to fake emotions. I knew how to make it look like I had them. And I kind of had them, like I said, but they felt off in the distance. I'm not sure how much any of this is going to make sense to anybody. Hopefully it makes sense at least to other systems. Hopefully somebody can relate to it, because it's a weird, strange experience. I don't know. Looking back at the videos, it kind of, it sounds like I had some feelings, right? I was jealous of the other people, or, I would feel this way or that way about boys or girls or whatever. But like I said, I kind of did have my emotions, but they were far, 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 far away, and it was like I couldn't do anything about them, basically. And then, but like I can't tell you, all the time somebody would say something to me and I would just think, oh no, how am I supposed to react to this? What am I supposed to do? What emotion am I supposed to express? And I would just go through all of the options in my head, and I would just try to go with, the one that seemed the most agreeable. Because, there were some things that I knew about myself, kind of, but not really. And I always seemed like a nice person. And part of that was me, and part of that was me listening to the others, like Kyle, and doing what they said to do. There was a lot that I didn't make a lot of decisions growing up. I always deferred to the voices in my head that I thought were mine. And they weren't always voices either. They were just, impressions, thoughts, feelings that didn't feel like mine. Like, I would feel strong emotions, but like I said, I grew up Mormon, so any strong feeling like that never usually came from me. Sometimes I would have an extreme emotion, but if I felt any sort of emotion, it was never mine. It never felt like it came from me, so I just assumed that it was God or the devil, like one or the other. That's who I assumed it was. God, devil, and then somebody else. It just felt like it was someone outside of me, that where those emotions came from. And part of that is true. If it was, the God voice, that was Kyle. If it was the devil voice, that was Devin. Spoiler alert, they're not God or the devil. But yeah, it would feel like a strong feeling from, say, Kyle being like, hey, you should be nice to this person. Or, hey, you should, do this kind of thing because it's a good, it's a good person thing to do. And stuff like that. Or like Devin is who would, he'd always give me a self-esteem boost. I thought, or I don't really remember right now, but because he was the devil. Or he wasn't the devil. I thought he was the devil, but he wasn't the devil. He was, I don't want to get into why, but basically he was the one who would come out when like all others failed in a situation, and then we just had to kind of fight our way out of it. That was his job. Another thing is identity confusion. Like I didn't know who I was. I had the body's name, and we had this body, and we had a family and a name and all of that, but I didn't know who I was ever. Like I never had a firm grasp on that. At least I didn't. I think there was some times when like one of the others would be up and I'd be like, oh, I think I know who I am now. Da 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 da. But then it would be gone, and I would be back in this confusion again. And it's because, it wasn't me. Growing up, I think this might be a little unique to me because my emotions were all suppressed until just, like, recently. So my emotions were hidden from me, my identity was hidden from me, my name was hidden from me. But basically, I didn't know who I was. From my perspective, even though now I know it was just other people switching in or being confronting with me, being upfront with me, in the car, in the metaphorical car of our body. I may have been in the driver's seat most of the time, but sometimes someone else would switch in. And I shouldn't say sometimes, all of the time. Every day, to me, it would feel like I was changing into a different person every few hours. And it was on a schedule where in the morning I would wake up, I would be one person. Usually we would be a very, very devout Mormon kind of person. And then as the day went on, I would change to somebody else. I would change to somebody who maybe wasn't as, as good of a Christian or whatever, who had, thoughts that weren't Christian and stuff like that. And then by nighttime, I maybe would kind of feel like maybe I finally found some way of being put together that felt okay. But by then it's nighttime, right? And sometimes I would stay up for a few hours again on purpose because I didn't want to wake up and be completely dissociated again and have no idea who I was, how I felt, what was going on. It's like every day I was a broken puzzle that I had to put together, and it might be kind of mushed together by the time bedtime came around, and then I'd have to go to sleep, wake up, and do it all over again. It was exhausting. It was just pure exhaustion. So when I say that I didn't have a connection to my name, I don't mean the body's name. I meant my name, Jamie. When I was growing up, I remember coming across the name Jamie and really liking it. And I'm pretty sure I even, kind of wanted to change my name to it. I wanted to change my name to Jamie. And then I forgot about it for years. And then when I learned about my system, everybody else in the system, they found their names, they had, different genders, different sexualities. They had likes, they had dislikes. They knew what they looked like. I didn't, I couldn't remember. I didn't know what I looked like. I knew what I came across as, but it didn't feel like me. I didn't remember, how I felt that I should look. And it was very distressing for me because, can you imagine waking up and not remembering what you look like? You don't know your hair color. You don't know what your body looks like. You don't know your gender. You don't know your sexuality. You don't know any of these things. Because that's another thing growing up is you're a lot of times, we've heard this from a lot of people, but I'm gonna backtrack and say my experience again. So I was never really sure what my sexuality or gender was growing up. To me, it seemed to change. And, back when I was a kid, we didn't have terms like gender fluid or anything like that. But even in my 20s, when I was introduced to all of that stuff, nothing really fit. Like pansexual kind of fit, but it still didn't feel right. And it never felt right for me to be like, well, I'm going to come out and say I'm pansexual or I'm this or I'm that or anything like that. Because for me, growing up, it just always seemed to change. And like I said, sometimes it would change throughout the day, I'd go from completely uninterested, in any kind of romantic stuff to liking boys or liking girls. And I say but again, that was the others coming up close and having their experiences right next to me so that I could feel it. But it wasn't me. but it felt like, because I didn't know about them, it felt like everything was in flux. And I just assumed, like everyone tells you when you're a teenager, right? Oh, you'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. Nobody knows, that stuff until you're 20 and blah, blah, blah. Well, my 20s came and went, and I still had no clue what any of that stuff was. I do now, thank goodness. So yeah, growing up, I didn't know any of those things, and that was very distressing for me. The older I got, like, I wasn't, I was just okay with, not knowing, sort of, but it didn't make sense that I didn't know anything about myself. So, growing up was hard. Anyway, I'm fighting getting sad and depressed and dissociated about a lot of this, so I'm gonna leave it off there. There's still a ton to talk about, but I don't want this to be a super long video, and I'm sure there'll be other times. I'm new to this, and I should have known that this would affect me like this. But final thoughts are, I know who I am. Yay! I don't always have access to who I am. Like I said, 80% me right now. Sometimes, I just don't have access to me sometimes. Either because someone else is up front with me and has very strong influence, or I'm extremely dissociated, so I don't feel like myself. If you made it this far, thanks for listening. Subscribe if you want to. Leave a comment. Hang out. I don't know how to end videos yet. Have a good night or day. Have a good.